Great. It looks like we are live. So, hi, I'm Cerec, and I'm here with His Royal Majesty Christian Bain of Ontario. He has reigned, I think this is his third reign in Ontario, and he reigned in the Principality of Thierry before that. And I'm doing these Ducal interviews because I had this challenge for myself to fight 50 Dukes this year. And obviously that is not going to happen with all the cancellations of the wars. So I'm going to interview them instead. And Christian was nice enough to fight me at Ursulmus, so he gets to go second because I actually fought him this year. So I'm very, very appreciative that he agreed to do this with me. And so why don't we just start at the beginning? How did you find the SDA?
Wow, that's a bit of a story. I used to work with kids just through kind of a church group sort of thing, just counseling them, working with them. And there's just a guy who mentioned something about some fighting thing that he knew about. And he came over to my friend's place and we were just hanging out, and I was sitting in the corner and I heard some story about these flags waving and guys with swords and shields, and it's all that kind of stuff that I, as a kid, really, really loved the idea about. And I kept bugging him. I was just a little kid. I was like, 14 or something like that. Just hammered on him saying, tell me where this is. Tell me what this is. I want to know. And then he moved away and he was gone. And for years and years and years, I was like just listening for any little hint that somebody might have known of this thing or looking in newspapers or anything like that. And then finally he came back and I met him one day and I chased him down. I said, give me something, anything. Before you leave, give me something. And he gave me a phone number. And I called the number, which was, of course, the way that it was back then. And it was a little bit odd because an old lady answered the phone and I'm a young kid and trying to have that conversation with her. And it turned out to be a good friend of his, Amanda Kendall. And she said, well, come out to a newcomers event. And I did. And just about every single person that I came across there took me under their wing and showed me stuff. And since then it was just forever, permanent. So, yeah.
So it was the whole medieval aspect, not just the fighting at first?
Not at all the fighting, but the fighting was the story.
Okay.
It was the banners, it was the people dressed up, it was all of that sort of thing, a storybook come to life kind of sort of feeling, So that was about it. The fighting, of course, caught me. But what a lot of people wouldn't guess is that I thought I was destined to be a rapier fighter, and I have not touched a rapier in my entire life. So, it was just, I thought that was cool, the Three Musketeers, all that kind of thing. So I was going to go that way, and then it never happened. So.
Oh, so you never tried it at all?
Yeah, one time, embarrassingly, someone kind of said, here, try this, whatever. I had forgotten my armor, actually, one day. So somebody said, well, you do something. So, and I tried that, and I was horrible at it. So.
Okay. Well, how did you get sidetracked into fighting when you were on the rapier track?
Well, yeah, it's more that I was looking around for anybody that could help because there's a lot of people that were in Vancouver. I was a little bit outside of Vancouver and it was a little bit less active. And just one person, I guess, I was hanging out with some friends at a coffee shop and one friend of theirs knew about it and was a heavy fighter. And I kind of ended up that way. Did some boffer stuff at first, and otherwise I was still relatively young. And then it just threw me in some very ill-fitting armor, pickle barrel and that sort of stuff. And that was it. It never stopped.
So how long did it take you from getting in the pickle barrel armor to putting together your own kit?
It was pretty brutal, actually. I went to the local practice and I kept showing up there and just watching. I didn't have any prospects or ways, finances, honestly. Like that was something that was a huge thing for me. Even just paying $20 to buy a barrel wouldn't even happen. So, and so I just got really dedicated to watching. And it was like 3 years of showing up now and again and being some weird kid with this horrible, intense stare, watching every single person, trying to pick up anything I could. Because even then I knew if I just watched it, I'd figure something out. I'd learn something. I wanted to be prepared for the opportunity that I could borrow somebody's armor. I want to be prepared for when somebody would hand me a sword, right? Because those opportunities came up once or twice. And I honestly felt like I had something on all the people that were just kind of walking around talking, I had a few things in my head already before I got into the armor. So
Okay.
I think it was about
Um,
3 years of that, and then borrowing armor here and there, and made it over the next year or so. And that was by the time I was actually really fighting. Just kind of going up to a Clinton war here and there and that sort of stuff was maybe about 2000. So
and how old were you then?
that would make me 19 or so when I
Okay,
was
so still really young.
yeah, I was fighting here and there from 17 to 19. So
So when did you decide to get serious about fighting?
um, it's funny, you know, like there's some things that just kind of go by and you have to think about it. This is one of those things that's just burnt into my brain. Um, 2000 was when I really had my own feet underneath me that I was doing stuff, but I kind of piddled around for 5 years. Um, I went to a couple wars here and there, but nothing else. And there was an opportunity that just came out of nowhere, just a random thing over the air that there was an extra ticket that was a cancellation for somebody in a group flight to Pensick. And Hathawolf, Sir Hathawolf, had just mentioned it to somebody that I knew and said, well, is there anybody? Because they were trying to fill the seat. And I was like, $500 or whatever it was. Sure, I'll go. And I had nothing with me, just a bit of armor and that sort of thing. Silly dome tent or whatever. And I showed up there. In fact, I was sitting in the airport and I knew nobody at all. Lots of people from Seattle. But then some guy came along that didn't even know what he was doing. Isn't it Ethan? Turned into now Sir Ethan. And he and I bonded because we didn't know anybody and we were scared to death. And so that was about it. Went to that Pensick, and that was when Uther was king for Ontier. And that was it. Seeing that guy, seeing the way that he walked around that place, seeing the way that, you know, this grand personality, that he was the reason, really the reason. He showed me something I'd never seen before.
He's pretty much a rock star.
Yeah.
So, so after Pensick, you were hooked, basically.
Especially because of Pensick, I was fighting. I was on the warfield. It was the worst personal camping event possible because it's hot, it's muggy. I'm in a dome tent. It was terrible. But getting on that field and seeing that, that storybook unfold in front of me, you know, like, it was like everything that I had hoped it would be. You know, you're standing on the sidelines, you're dead, you know, die immediately, get hit by a ballista bolt or something like that. But I'm looking down the field. I can't even see the people at the other side of it. The dust is kicked up and just the screaming and the yelling. And it was this beautiful moment that just kind of felt like it was out of the Iliad or something, right? It was just amazing and perfect. And if you let yourself go with that thought, you can be there. And that was just poetic. It was beautiful. And ever since, anytime I can see one of those moments, I grab onto it. And it just made me feel that. And it stuck. So,
yeah, the magnitude of Pensick is pretty impressive. And so when you got back, how did you embark on a more serious path?
That event, Pensick itself, I'd seen some fighters up in Clinton War. Some people had come up, and a few people, some knights or otherwise, that really stuck out. And to be honest, one of which that really stuck out to me because he fought so differently than everybody else. He made it real and intense, and of course that kind of fits me. Was a guy, Avalok, and I just saw the way that he chased after a fight, how he hunted people. It was amazing and devastating and beautiful. It was this dance, and so I wanted to be. I wanted to know who he was. I wanted to talk to him, and he was Arndit. My search led me to look online and try to find any way to be somehow close to that. So I found who his squires were and the people that he trained. And I thought to myself, well, then if I can't learn what he knows, I'll learn it from them. And I had found about a guy named Sir Marcus Hammerhand. And I found that he made titanium armor. And to me, that made sense. I went to the extreme. If I'm going to be the best, if I want to be the best, if I want to take it right up to the top, well, titanium makes sense. And I do the best thing with the best armor, with the best metals. So I knew about him before I ever met him. And then at that Pensic with Uther, Marcus was there. And I had originally made this titanium gorget at one point, and somebody showed it to him, said, "Hey, look what this guy does. He does titanium too." And Marcus looked at it and and that was about it. And that just stuck with me. It burned, and I wanted to impress that guy, and I wanted to know who he was. And now this guy doesn't care who I am. I'm going to make him know who I am. And so I chased him down, and every single time that I could go to an event and I found out he was going to an event, I wanted to meet him. I wanted to see him again. And I kept talking to him. And then he accepted me into his life, and he took me as a squire. And that was how that kind of, followed through that path. So
I think I actually have a picture of baby Christian. Let me see. Getting squired. There it is.
Oh yeah, that's Clinton War actually too. He came up, and that was an excellent day.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned Avalok. He basically put me in armor when I first started too. I mean, he did a lot of really good things. Anyway, there is some really good about him. So when did you get knighted? How long was your squire path?
Extremely short for how it should be, or typically is. So I was Marcus's man at arms, but that didn't last the year and a day sort of thing. One of the things that he told me, which I was very proud of, but was my goal, and that was how I work, is that every single time that he could think of something to put in front of me, I've already jumped that hurdle. I've already done it before he could tell me, "Here's your next challenge." And he just kind of threw his arms up and was like, "Whatever, you're my squire. This is stupid," right? So I was very happy about that, and I wanted to always keep that that pace. And I believe that you should, rather than pulling it out right to the last minute, show your stuff, right? So same thing with being a squire. And I might be getting ahead of any questions, but I'll just say it because it's about the only thing that I really remember from it. It's something that is kind of a cautionary tale, in the sense that I burned real hot, and I didn't make friends, and I wasn't the best squire, and I know it. And to the people that tried to help me, aside from just Marcus, I was tough. I was tough to deal with, and I know it. But I just needed to achieve. I needed to climb, and I didn't really know how to do that without burning out everybody around me. And that includes.
When you say you're tough, what do you mean by that? Like you just had too much thirst, or?
Yeah, but I push and I push and I push, and I expect a lot of people. I expect a lot of people even now. But I maybe have found a different way to do it, or with better tact or otherwise. I have an endurance that just doesn't quit. But the thing that scares me, and the thing that actually holds me back, is, let's say, my lady at the time, my inspiration currently, Her Majesty, Helene. Well, I almost burned her out, just pushing and pushing and pushing. And I didn't look back to see whether she could keep the same pace. I didn't ask whether the people who were working with me and training me, or at least trying to guide me, could keep the same pace, or they were even willing to hear how many questions I had and what I wanted to push at and what I needed. I just wanted to eat up the whole world. And, well, that doesn't mean that everybody's willing to go along for that ride. So something I learned the hard way, for sure. That said, I pushed really hard, and I think it was about 3.5 years, and that was it. So I know a lot of people, it could be 10 years, it could be 5 years, it could be whatever, but the way that I pushed and how hard was, fiery, intense, and also very quick, as far as how a lot of people go.
Well, and you also had lots of years where you weren't serious. So, when you decided, you decided. So,
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. I know that Marcus lives down by me and down in the Seattle area, and you're up in Canada,
Yeah.
Right over the border, but still. Was location and the pushing, I'll just, because that's what you called it, part of why you also had a foster night?
No and yes. So he taught me how to make armor. So I make titanium armor. I'll admit, not without his machines. You need some pretty heavy machinery to do a lot of that work. But I was working security. I was working night times. I was a bouncer. I was doing that sort of stuff. So I would get off work at 3 o'clock in the morning, and my truck was packed, and I drove straight down to his place immediately. I'd sleep as much as I could, get up, go into the shop, and that was my weekends, right? So it was just over and over and over again. Anytime I had time off, I'd just show up, and I'd show up when he wasn't even there. He was moving. He had a new relationship that he started, and so he had moved in with her, which was away. And then I saw him less, and I saw him less, and rightly so. He was starting a new life, and a very happy one, I believe. So I started to see him less, despite me pushing and being down there as much as possible. And that became a bit of a rift, something that was difficult. We had a very hard talk about that. But it was really that I knew that I needed someone. I knew that I needed contact. I couldn't just be there alone. I thrive off of that. Not necessarily just community, but at very least having that touch point and having that umbrella to help me and protect me sometimes, right? At least as long as being a squire, to show me just a few things I don't know, at least, right? So there was this guy up in Canada going to the same practice, and you interviewed him first. So that would be His Grace Cerec. Honestly, I can't even remember the first moment, but I identified something in me. He knew to some degree that I needed help. I don't know if there's some back conversation that happened with the knights, or I don't know, but he talked to me at one point. He even said, "Hey, I know you're skilled. You make all this armor and that sort of thing. Why don't you come work for me as well? That might even help you get to events properly, have the finances, do all that." He did so much right in the first moments for me. And then he was that touch point for me. And I gotta say, he couldn't have been more opposite from Marcus than anybody else. So there was tension there, and I was never officially, let's say, his man-at-arms or squire, but there is not a second that I wouldn't say that I am happily and faithfully, I came from him, and he was my knight too, so he's a good man, especially for putting up with me.
So how long did you work with Cerec?
That was honestly, I don't even know. That was probably halfway through. Could have been a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in there. So it feels like a lot longer, especially a lot longer than I spent just with Marcus, but that was because it was every weekend, all the time, any chance I could get, talking to him on the phone or different messenger systems, or otherwise it was very intense. And well, Marcus is an intense guy, so he could keep that up.
So I'm curious because obviously I am one that seeks knowledge too. I do a whole bunch of things to get people to come so I can learn, including this. What kind of questions were you just driven by?
Oh, that's no.
No?
It has everything recorded. If you want, Marcus, you could talk to him.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just wondered, if it was like technique that drove you, or
no. Honestly, and I guess this makes sense to talk about. I learned very little, and I don't say that disparagingly. I learned very little of combat and fighting and that sort of thing from Marcus. I learned more from Cerec, but again, still not all too much. I quickly took one concept or something that I saw and made it my own almost immediately. It was just kind of how I work. So there wasn't a whole lot of repetition or here, do this. Never really happened much. And with Marcus, it wasn't about fighting. It was about learning how to make armor. But also, he has a bit of a acerbic attitude and some interesting angles on how things work, almost to the point of conspiracy theories and whatever else. But,
He has a heart of gold. I like to focus on the heart of gold.
oh, I miss him. I love him. Absolutely a heart of gold. But, he has fun with things, and I had fun poking him about it too. But a lot of it was that he could take my hard questions when it came to stuff that was negative. He really understood the negative approach, which is a really hard concept to talk about with the SCA because it really is a beautiful place. And it's not that I see it negatively. I've always tried to make people understand what I see, and that I see things very much down the middle neutrally, and I am not afraid of the negative. I don't chase it, but I'm not afraid of it. So it looks like I'm going toward it, right? I love both sides, the good, the bad, all of it. It needs to exist. Otherwise, there's no such thing as good without the bad, right? I mean, we all know that really at our hearts, but I would look at the bad quite heavily and wonder why it exists and wanted to know the theory and the reasons and why do people do this? Why do the knights do this? Why are the politics like this? And they were a lot of questions a lot of people were scared to even approach or even admit existed. And he would talk to me about that. And he would entertain those, at least those discussions, even if he didn't have the answer. So it was a wonderful relationship that way because it let me exercise that, get that out. If not, some recordings of it are me railing at the moon, just angry or frustrated. And sometimes you just need to do that.
That's interesting. I actually have of a similar mind about examining the core reason some things happen, because if you don't understand that, you can't ever try to rise above it, I guess. So, all right. Well, let's talk about Cerec then, because before we went on air, you told me that you also had very intense, long conversations with him. So was it the same sort of thing?
No.
No. Okay.
As I was kind of touching on before, he didn't like those conversations as much. He is, if you want to talk about a guy with a heart of gold again, two wonderful people to have an effect on my life. And to keep me from going down any sort of dark path. I mean, they both did it in their own way. And he didn't, I don't know, I don't want to speak for him, but I do know he shut me down sometimes. He wouldn't even listen to me a few times. Honestly, that was a bit of an education I needed. I needed somebody who was going to say no sometimes, and just, that's not how it goes. Keep it to yourself, or you're seeing it wrong. That was very helpful. And to be fair, he does it now. I haven't lost that connection with him. There was a time where we didn't talk for a little while. I was working things out, but it's such a beautiful thing where you can have these friends that come back. It's such a beautiful thing where you have this community where you have more opportunities. And he gave me that for sure. And he's been, any time that I've been on the throne, he's been a confidant. He's been someone there to speak to bounce things off of, and to be an advisor, pretty much the most trusted advisor that I can ask for, because he will tell me I am an idiot if I'm an idiot. He really will. And he has a great way to get into my head to really cut through the emotions. But doesn't mean that at the time as a squire, he was all that happy with a lot of my questions. To the point where I frustrated him, or he couldn't even handle the complexity of them sometimes. As I said to you, we were driving one time, and he'll hate me for telling this story probably, but he stopped the car and put me in the driver's seat and said, I can't deal with the questions and how you ask them and whatever, and drive at the same time. You drive. I'm just going to talk. And he understood me. He understood me better than I think I realized at the time.
So which king knighted you?
That would be currently right now, His Royal Highness Vic of Avical right now. Yeah, so he, for some reason, picked me out of the blue and decided he wanted to hit me, buff it. So,
Did you have a vigil?
I had two vigils, funny enough. They at least put me on vigil or told me that I was going to be knighted at a crown tournament in Calgary, or roughly in that area. And because there were some people in that area, Abacal, when it was part of Ontier at the time, Cerec said, hey, let's have a vigil here so a couple of people can see him, that sort of thing. So we did that really quickly, and so a few people could. And the next weekend at the Thierry, I believe, Coronet event, Coronet tournament, there was another vigil. So I sat in a very, very tiny tent, sweaty, hot tent, and had a bunch of people come in and talk to me. So.
Interesting. What's the most memorable piece of advice you got at your vigil?
I can't say that well, okay, this is going to be a little bit to the side of your question, but something that I learned along the way. Not necessarily advice, and to be honest, a lot of it I don't remember. There was one piece, I gotta say, I gotta remember what Vic and his lady and Majesty at the time, Inga, had said to me, which was, there are no new knights. You are being recognized this day, and you have a voice this day. And that is something that I hold true and I speak about anytime I sit in any vigil, especially if I'm king. I want whoever I'm making whatever peerage to know that their voice is now. That is the point of receiving that peerage. And that voice goes directly to the king. And that is something that I hold true and very dear to my heart. That said, the one thing that really stuck through to me was that after a whole bunch of people had come in, one person came in. It was His Grace Darius. And what an amazing man, and what a powerful presence. A monster of a man when you're sitting there on a seat looking up at this guy come through the doorway. And he sat there in front of me and honestly blotted out all the light in the tent. And he leaned forward, and all he said was, "So what do you want to know?" And I had no idea what to say. This guy, like, what do you do? What do you say? What do you even ask? And I realized in that moment, I was looking like an idiot, but also that there was too much. My brain was on fire with all these different questions that I had wanted to ask, or people told me to not ask, but also that I didn't even know where to go or what my next path was. If I was getting knighted, where am I going with this? And I need to have questions. I need to chase answers, and I need to not let that end at this moment here, that day. And I didn't. I wasn't prepared. And that was something I was never going to let happen again.
So you're not going to cut yourself any slack that you were sitting in a hot tent and you were inundated with information, and you just weren't prepared to ask like the good question?
It's not. I realize just at my core that's not my philosophy.
Okay.
Be prepared and keep moving. Never stop, and don't stop learning. I don't think that knighthood should be the end, of course. But also you shouldn't lose hunger.
So let's talk about your hunger. How long was it after you got knighted that you won Coronet?
4 years.
4 years. Was it your goal after you got knighted to win Coronet?
Yes and no. I wanted to win crown. Coronet was available to me, and I never, ever accept. And I know I've heard it here and there, depending on where it is, and even what kingdom a coronet tournament for a principality throne exists. I know around the various different kingdoms, it's actually the majority don't have it. But I never would accept, though I've heard that negatively said, that it's second best or it's kind of a starter kit to being king. I don't like that. I don't believe that. It's very unique and it's very special in itself. But also, I don't look at it as a stepping stone. So I wanted crown, but I did believe that it was my job and my duty, if I was the fighter that I was a presence that I was, to not turn it aside because I want something better. If that is where my skill level is and that's what I can contribute, then that is what I should do. So it took a while to get there, though. I gotta be honest, getting knighted messed me up. It wasn't good. I lost so much. I'd learned. I had this wall to push on for so long. I had these objects, these directions. I had these goals that people gave me. People said, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to make sure this shot lands. You can't transfer to this one without this, and you're too fast, you're too slow, you're too this, you're too that. And I could feed off of that, even though it frustrated me. It made me angry sometimes, but it gave me a target. It gave me a goal. I didn't have to look for it for myself. I didn't have to find it within me. It was from without, and that was easy. But as soon as I got knighted, that wall was impossible. That wall was permanent, and it became my friend almost. It was that thing that I knew to expect. That it became that friendly enemy, and then it pushed through like paper. And I was standing in this empty, dark room with nothing. I didn't know what to do, and I did go dark for a little bit. I was just angry at myself for wasting being a squire. There's so many different, I heard about them growing up. Squire stories, stupid squire stories, oh, somebody pushed over a biffy or somebody this or somebody that, and it's haha funny, whatever. I never had those. I didn't allow myself that. I was too serious, and I lost that opportunity to make friends, or the friends that I have, to make better friends with them. They were surface, they were near but not close. And that was because of my methodology, and that burnt people out, but also it burnt me out to some degree. But I just kept running, and I didn't enjoy it, and I think I did myself a very big disservice by that. I didn't feel the moment. I lost the moment.
But it's never too late to have the moment, right? I mean, you can have that as a knight, you can have that as king, you can have that as a duke.
Yeah, and that's what I'm very glad I've been able to come back and do. And trust me, I've seen some really amazing and beautiful things, and that's my goal. That's something that I learned from that negativity, was to build up and never do that again.
Interesting. So your cornet, how long from cornet to crown was it until you won a crown?
4 years.
4 years. There was
4 years to coronet, then 4 years crown. Yeah. So
I do these stupid little things before crown, like these contender lists, right? And I know, like, I don't know how many years ago it was, I said something like, I'm not sure Christian wants to win, because I've always been really impressed with your prowess. And honestly, I mean, your composure on the field and your blow calling, I mean, you're just a really stellar person on the field. And, I'm like, he's not going where I think he should go, so maybe he's just not serious. And then you got serious. So what changed in your head?
Well, I was a little more honest with myself. I wanted it. I always wanted it. And I made a comment to you. I think I walked past you and I just said something because I saw that.
You did.
And at the time, I was more quiet than I am now. And a lot of that is because of insecurity. I was worried that because of my past, because of who I was, people wouldn't like me, or I didn't know what people thought of me. So I would just be quiet and be that quiet, dark, angry guy that would just go and fight. But I was trying at that time to kind of show and open up and go, oh, well, I hit somebody's radar. At least I can show that person, because they let me in somewhere. Hi, I exist and I saw you too. And I appreciate the mention, and try to be funny about it, because, it's in there somewhere. So,
well, it's supposed to be fun, right? Like, it's not supposed to be a serious thing.
So, and for everybody that's watching, I said to you something to the effect of, like, well, maybe I'm serious now or something like that. I can't remember what it was right now, but the whole thing about that was I actually tried to not mention. I'm going to give up too many secrets here now.
There are no secrets.
There's I gotta keep some. So I tried not to put little notifications on Facebook or any sort of mention or otherwise that I was even going to the event or otherwise. I was trying to like stealth it until I showed up and then ruin people's days, right? And I thought that was kind of fun. And I'd seen it a couple times. People would see me on the list board and go, "Oh," and then walk away, right? So it felt good. A little bit of a confidence boost, and I was able to go into the tournament that way. But I was always good. I was always quickly talented in the sense that I would see something, I'd observe something, and I'd apply it. I wouldn't, and I know this is you're gonna hate me for this, and absolutely Saveric's gonna hate me for this, and probably many other teachers. I hate pills. I
was going to ask you about that because you're one of the only elite fighters I know that doesn't do pel work.
I don't do pel work. I don't do slow work. I hate drills. Saverick and I had a massive fight about that. But anyways, so I just can't do it because I believe that, and it all depends on who you are. I really want to preface with that. It all depends on how you work, and you need to understand yourself first before you take on training from other people. That's my little addition here. But I knew that I got into ruts. I knew that if you do the I hit you, you hit me, you see that on the battlefield all the time. You see that in the tournament. Somebody will go click, 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 and that's the exchange between two opponents. And then they'll back away, reset, come back, click, 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 click. And it's garbage. But that's because of them. Maybe they didn't understand the training. They didn't get the full aspect of it or whatever it is. I was very susceptible to that. If I went in to do a drill, I would almost wait for the drill to happen. And then if I go into a tournament, I would wait for the drill to happen. And it got me killed all the time. It ruined everything. And I was so cognizant about it. I knew it was happening. So I stopped. And then slow work, I wouldn't do that because it would ruin my tempo or speed. Whatever was natural. I observe a tempo and I choose another tempo. I don't just go in with a standard tempo. A lot of people do, and that's how they win. I just don't. So doing anything slow work or 3/4 speed or whatever you want to call it, that ruins that too. So any of those set types of training, they really set in my head, but beyond a training level, but to a natural tempo and timing level, that it just destroyed any progress that I was making. So I went away from that and I just went into raw fighting. If somebody's fighting me, I might do slow work, but they don't know it. I'm slowly absorbing their shots as I'm backing away, and I'm not throwing as many of mine to let my body warm up. But that's how I warm up. I don't do warm-ups per se, but I kind of do in that sense. I look all the time like I just put my bike. And there's a lot more to it, but it's inside me and I'm making the choice. I don't intentionally do that with a partner. That's all. And same thing with the training. So I have to say, I think we've gotten a little bit off topic here. So, I can't even remember where we were to get to this. I
mean, I think this is really interesting because you don't do pel work or slow work. I just wonder, how do you train? Because you train like a demon. I mean, you've become more open because you started posting your training on Facebook.
That's how we got into this. Yeah. So so at very least with the getting serious about, and that's kind of where we were at first. I had a natural ability, and I know that. And natural ability is nothing unless you train. It really isn't, because somebody who trains will beat you. But somebody who trains won't necessarily beat somebody with natural ability that does also train. So that's the thing that I had added later on. But I never really took my health seriously. I was okay. I wasn't horribly overweight or anything. I wasn't really in a bad position, but I wasn't athletically sound. I wasn't really capable to enact the things that my brain was thinking up that my body wanted to do. So I just decided that the one thing that I wasn't putting together, that I didn't have naturally, or that incidental thing, I was just born lucky, I'll admit, to some degree. I still had things I had to do though. And without that, I was wasting myself. I had this moment that I realized, like, I mean, if I'm going to do this, I better do this. I think a lot of people do have that moment, but it's one of those things that I also came to terms with how much I love the SCA too, and how much that passion is there. I saw it's really kind of a tough story in a way, but it's a wonderful story too. I saw someone. I saw, wow, I saw His Grace Duke Ulf go out at Pensick and fight a guy who was in a wheelchair. And what a wonderful, wonderful guy that was. I got to know who he was later on, but he impressed me, and it shocked me too. I didn't really understand it at the time, and I thought, what's going on? I don't understand it. But it was this beautiful moment between two people, and I think that's so admirable and wonderful, both in the strength and the perseverance that somebody would push forward and say, I'm going to be a heavy fighter. I don't care. Damn everything that's in front of me, I'm doing it. And then I look at myself and I'm riding off of natural talent and physicality. That's a terrible thing. That's a terrible waste. And that to me is thumbing my nose at people that actually try way harder than I do. And that I'm just lucky. And that's a horrible thing for me to do. So if I have this, I better use this, and I better do the most that I can with it. And that's something that everybody, I would hope, would do, but I believe should do. That's my philosophy. And I'm doing disservice to everybody, nonetheless myself, to fritter away something that I've been blessed to have. So I better give it my all or stop, one or the other.
And your all is to focus on your fitness and your physicality.
Yeah, and that's something that I realized is an amazing thing, is a little public service announcement for everybody else. Right now, with all this isolation, COVID, this, that, depending on where you are and what your restrictions are, one of the things that I learned in the last couple of years is that I barely have to go to practice. If I keep my body going, if I keep my body fit, if I've got a gym at home, I'm lucky in that way. I've built it and I've bought all the equipment, but mostly because I just don't want people watching me work out. I'm embarrassed half the time. So, I make weird noises and it's odd, but I used to have curtains around it so nobody at my house could even see me. It was really like super, super self-conscious, but yeah, if you keep yourself going, if you keep yourself physically in contact with the brain body connection, if you keep that going in some way, it didn't matter what, but I do whole body sort of work. The amount of practice you need to do goes right down. And if you're at a level that I am, it's almost like you don't even have to go to practice. I go to practice to brush up, but I barely lost a step. I'm healthy, I'm fit, I feel good. I don't feel like I'm shaking off a whole bunch of rust. I don't feel like I've got to lose 10 pounds. Because I don't. And I'm not feeling slow. My muscles are still engaged and they're still firing really hard. Now it's just making my brain say, do this to my body. So
do you think that your physical fitness is the strongest part of your fight? Or, I mean, some people would say it's speed, but
yeah, well, that's one of the things that, again, like I'm a big, strong guy. I'm 6'2" plus, maybe. I'm 240 pounds, though a lot of people say I don't look it, but it's, dense. Yet I'm fast, and I know I'm fast. But I was watching this, what was it? The Need for Speed. So
yeah, the coach's corner.
Yeah,
that was fascinating.
It was fascinating. To be honest, I think a few things were missed, but that's my own personal point of view. But they're talking about timing. Oh, that's important. That's amazingly important. A lot of what they were talking about was that a lot of speed is mistaken because it's actually just timing. And they are so right about that. That was bang on. However, what if you have timing and speed? So I try to put that together. I think I do okay at that. But a lot of that timing isn't just timing. Timing doesn't come naturally. That comes from analytics. That comes from being able to observe and predict. That comes from a lot of different details there. And I think the brain, without a question, that's the biggest thing. Now, I don't know. I think the whole point was that I knew I had various different things to my advantage, a multitude of things, and I wasn't keeping my body up to speed. So I put all those things together. I couldn't pick out one thing that would be the strength. A lot of times, especially if you win multiple times, you'd have to say you probably have a whole package rather than just one thing. Otherwise, you don't get lucky that quickly, that often, right? So,
yeah. So let's switch to reining for a little bit. What is your favorite part of reining?
There's so much. There's so much. It is a phenomenal thing. But it's really, you get to see so many people and you get to see what they do and you get to reach out and you have this spotlight on you. Everybody says, oh, look at this guy. I don't care about that. And I really would rather. And I think the right thing, your job is to take that spotlight and move it over to that person for a moment and that person for a moment and to just sit, yes, on a high chair, but that chair should only be so that you can see better of what everybody's doing around you. So you have a better vantage point so that you can see and read the award recommendations that come in. You can talk to all the key people, the barons, baronesses, prince, princess, everybody that's involved, the event stewards. You can talk to those key people. You have a window into their lives and an all access pass to everything. So you could ask the key questions and then take that spotlight and say, that person did good. That person did good. Hey, I see you. Hey, I know what you did. Somebody told me, because they talk, because you asked them to talk, because you asked them to bring those things to you. And that's the job. And that should be the job. It's an amazing thing to be able to do. And to see those people smile, it's everything. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you love that? So, yeah.
All right, so we have this tradition in Ontario, and I'm going to go to a picture again of the collar of steel. Let me see. Is it going to? So that, and not every kingdom has that tradition. And I'm just kind of wondering, how does it feel to be wearing the collar of steel?
It's powerful and vulnerable all at the same time. That you have all of those swords at your command, but that they are also held to you and hold you accountable. And it is an amazing thing. That moment is, I don't want to take away from the other peerages, but the reality is that I come from that peerage. And to be able to be on the receiving end of that is amazing, but it's humbling. You really know in that moment. It is such a visual representation of your job to do that as a knight and lay that on a king feels amazing. But then to be on the receiving end of that you finally now have been called by your own skill or otherwise to now answer and to do that job that they are holding you accountable to it's a moment many people will never see. Most people would never see. And I wish they could. I wish they could. It changes everything.
Okay. So how hard is it not to be the decision maker once you step down?
Well, it's not.
It's not hard?
No. You've made such like the whole, I guess one of the things that's really difficult about it, and I understand it, I've observed it, is that somebody has worked, hopefully, so hard to create this thing and to move it in such a direction that they believe is true and good. and to hand that off to somebody else and hope that they don't break it. I get it, but I honestly, and a lot of people don't see this because I've been king multiple times very quickly within Ontier. I am the best right-hand man you could ever ask for. The reality is that I don't necessarily want to lead. The truth is that that's probably the person you actually want to lead, because they're not going to covet it. They're not going to chase it for just the fact that you get to wear a crown. I hope that I represent that, and that's one of the things that I very much teach to my squires, because they are good fighters. They could win coronets soon. They could be something impressive. But I make sure that they know that their job is to be there for support, and that's support for the kingdom, support for the crown, support for your knight, support for everybody else. You were to serve. And if that moment comes where you get the opportunity to, if you're blessed, not that it's your right at all. And if in a moment, let's say something wrong is happening, somebody is getting hurt, something's happening that's bad, and there's no one else to answer that call, that's when you step up to do the job. Not because you're the right person, you're the guy, and you step in there with all this attitude, that you're just a good supporter and a good helper. But since there's no good person to lead at that moment, that's the only reason you're stepping in, that you are making sure that someone does. It's not because that's your right and that's your place. So a level of, I hope, humility in the action of taking that role as a leader.
It's interesting, because I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is that mentally they don't feel like they're entitled to win. Like, well, I think somebody else would make a great ruler too. I'd just be, and they don't believe in themselves in a way that leads them to the finish. And it's interesting to hear you say that you feel sort of the same way, and you're still able to mentally close.
I do feel the same way, but it doesn't lead to lack of confidence. It gives me confidence in who I am and what my job is. And if that moment arises, then, right, it doesn't keep me away from reaching my peak, because now I don't know if I'm right. Now I don't know if I can. And the best part is, if you're always there supporting, if you're always there as the right-hand man, woman, I should say, or otherwise, then you have the opportunity and you have the right amount of time to observe what the right things are. So then if and when, it's really, the job is to observe and to see, to educate yourself as much as possible, to learn what's come before you as well as what is right now, so that you're prepared for that moment when somebody else needs you, not necessarily that you want it, but you are prepared for it.
Interesting. All right. I want to ask you one more question about reigning, because you and Helene have had some really beautiful clothes and like all different time periods. I'm just wondering if you're the clothes horse or if she is. Like, who makes the decision on what period and cultures to decide to, showcase?
We have some phenomenal ladies that have come out to help us. Many
Seriously.
people in a lot of different areas. It's all over the kingdom. And it's just grown as we've continued. But it's not, it's a bit me, it's a bit her, but it's really just, are you comfortable with this? Because we really want to see you both wear this. And then we say yes or no. That's about it. We pretty much haven't said no to anything, because one of the things that we feel and we love about it, because I don't want to turn away somebody's opportunity to showcase their skill, to show what they can do, because that could be the opportunity for somebody to be recognized by a peerage, by a council, to say, hey, this person should be a laurel. Look at what they're doing. Look at their documentation. Look at their skill. Look at their consistency. Look how long and for who they've done this for. So my job really, hopefully seen this way too, is, there's a whole bunch of beautiful stuff. My job is to be a billboard for the people that are out there, for the entire populace, to show off what they're doing. So, I know you asked Saverick about periods and whatever else. I couldn't say what period I am, I mean, especially by my armor or otherwise, and especially because of the clothing that everybody makes for me. So I'm just, I wear what's there.
And that's fine. I just, some people have visions of, like they want to step down an Italian Ren or whatever. And, I think it's cool that you kind of let your costumers decide, because Entier is, I think, unique in the way that that takes care of the royals' clothes. So.
Yeah, but it's just kind of beautiful, especially like we had ducal coronets made, and one of the things that kind of just barely stumped the person that I had make them was that I said, I want you to be represented through what you make for us. I'm paying money, I'm this, whatever, but I want the artist to be represented. I want them to be proud of their works and not to just finish it because it's a job, but to finish it because it's a work of love. And I want everybody to see that individual through the works that I wear on my head, because I'll be represented in it for sure. There'll be ducal leaves and that sort of stuff, and that's great. But the way they do it, that's them, and I want that influence. And same thing with the clothing. I want their influence. I want them to be seen. And if they're seen because of what they drape over us, I'm very happy. It's wonderful work. You can't fault it. So why not?
Right. And when you give an artist artistic license, you're always going to get a better finished piece.
I think a work of love and true art then is so much more valuable.
Excellent. Okay. We sort of got lost in the mental stuff, but that's okay. We need to turn to your tools, though. Did you bring your sword?
Yes. Yeah, I did. Let's see. Down here.
All right. So that's your sword.
Yeah, just to bring it back so it's in view there. There you go.
It looks pretty thin. Is that like 1.25 built up with tape?
1.25 dead on with tape. So I have a planer. Again, I used to work for Cerec, and well, he's a carpenter, and he taught me some stuff. So I went out and got a planer, and I usually buy a ton of rattan, all just regular sticks, whatever, buck them all myself and then put them through the planer. I am very, very neurotic about my swords. Everything else, sure, but my swords, because they keep needing to be repeated and remade. But they're also the tool that I use to do action, right? Everything else is armor and it'll last, but my swords, I'll blow them out or otherwise. This is what I do the fine work with, so I want it to be perfect. So it's 1.25 wide, dead on. I've got measurements, I've got documentation, I've got pictures. I sent them up on Facebook.
I saw those.
A lot of people asked about, how or what do you do? Just so that, and I've even got the measurement of the tape and how many layers I use of the tape, how much the tape weighs just in a small section, an inch section, and so that is absolutely dead on, 1.25 until I hit some people, and then it almost starts to get bigger. So, because I don't wrap them very much. There is one spiral wrap of fiber tape, one spiral wrap of hockey tape, which is barely overlapping, really. It's enough, but I even put it over top of my oven to heat up the tape to get it to really adhere, to almost start to get the stickiness to come through the tape. And then by that time, and after it's been like pressed laminated, it is 1.25 then. So I do underplane the size of my swords to bring them up to 1.25.
And do you have a thrusting tip on that?
Yeah, so that's one of those low profile ones. You can see how it dips a little bit there just because it's built up here for it to wrap around with a little extra tape. On the ends of them, again, there's pictures. I actually take down the rattan even narrower than all of that, because you're going to be wrapping a lot of tape around it to secure it. So I'm building it up to 1.25 at that point. So I take it down a good, I'm terrible with measurements really, but to me it's like 1 millimeter or 2 less than what I plane the whole sword to. So I make this notched end and then I build it up with tape as you wrap it. So
interesting, because I was looking at those pictures when I was stalking you, and and I thought the notch was at the handle, but that was the top, huh?
No, yeah, no, the handle is also a very special thing too, and it's very unique to me. And you need to have these a lot of people might know. They're titanium. Sir Marcus makes them, sells them, sends them all around the world. I made this one, and it was a prototype. As you can see right there. Oh, there we go. There's some extra holes in there because I didn't know where I wanted it. So this was my prototype, and I never made another one because, truth be known, I hate making armor, even though I know how to do it. And if you look at it, I don't know if you can really tell, but the sword is offset down to the bottom here, right? So when you're holding it, there's less material here than there is here, and that's to let it go around my knuckles. I've offset the bottom, and if I show you this, you can see it then.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's set to the side to allow more room over here and less room over there where my thumb would be, right? And you can see how that tab is all off. Now, very uniquely there, a lot of people have a tab that sticks out the bottom of their sword, and then they wrap the tape down here. I've turned my tab up and underneath, so it gets taped up inside of the grip. And the reason I've done that, where a lot of people can't use my sword, because there's a big hunk of metal in there and there's no room for your fingers, is because I'm missing a finger down there. So for me, it doesn't interfere with where that would go. And then I get effectively almost an inch longer reach for an inch shorter sword than other people. My basket hilt is about an inch lower than most people's are, and it creates a slinging, almost saber-like throw to it. Plus also when I move my wrist, it doesn't interfere with my basket in this area, or my demi, the bell of the demi, because I have metal ones. So I can bend my wrist in a lot of ways that a lot of people can't, because it would jam into your wrist there. And then I also don't hurt my wrist because, you know, you don't get hit.
And when I was looking at the pictures, I noticed that you use a 2-trigger system. Is that right?
Yeah. So inside there,
Yeah, you can't really. Oh, there you can.
Yeah, there we go. So that's my thumb trigger there. I have 2 fingers in that one, and I tape them up inside there. I've over time gotten a better system of it all. But when my hand's in there, it is locked in, and it's not going anywhere, to the point of after a fight, when I go to shake somebody's hand, sometimes I'm stuck because the tape holds me, and like it's just so tight in there. But it allows a lot of manipulation that way. So
yeah, I was gonna. So you use both the thumb and the fingers for manipulation.
The thumb, not as much. You'll see when I'm fighting, you see it a lot of times in video. I'll fight, throw my shots, whatever, and I'll step back, and you might see me throw my hand down and put it back up and then in front of my face. When I sling it down, I'm opening up my hand completely, throwing it down toward the ground, letting the blade miss the grass. And because of the thumb trigger holding on, it resets the sword into center again. So that's really all it is. It's a centering loop. The one that actually does any of the manipulation is these 2 here for my fingers. This one is just about resetting position or making sure that it doesn't twist out of position.
Okay.
That's all.
Cool. And how long is it?
So mine tend to be, I mean, they could fluctuate, but that's just because I cut them wrong or whatever. Roughly 34 3/4 to 35. Pretty much never off of that. It's just how much and hard you tape down the foam or otherwise, that's all. But keep in mind, the active blade is about an inch longer than other people's. So it's effectively got the reach of a 36-inch sword. So.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we're down to the final 10 questions, and this is our rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Right. Sure.
Okay. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
His Majesty Uther.
Good choice.
I've never fought him. He is the guy that gave me my award of arms. He's the guy that hung the carrot way out there of what to be and how to be, hopefully. And he's somebody I've been chasing forever, and it never happened. Never happened.
All right. Who would you like to see reign in your kingdom?
Oh, you know, it's not. This is unfair to have 2 people that are going to have the exact same answer in a row. But you.
Okay, we'll go to the next one.
No, I'm stuck on this one. I'm not done with this one. And yes, I want to see you win. I want to see you throw the blow. I know that's uncomfortable, but I'm going to put you on the spot for a moment. You
All
are
right.
amazing, and I want you to win.
Thank you. Number 3, if you could talk stick with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
Uther would be close. I've also been really, really blessed that I've had a window into his grace. I haven't been able to talk to Duke Sean, really. And of course, Saverick said the same thing. I've been able to talk to Duke Paul a lot. So otherwise, he would have been that one, right? But Duke Sean for sure.
You know, Sean loves to talk fighting, and he's open to Zoom sessions. So,
You know, one thing that I do want to pull out here, since I've got this platform, I'm gonna say Duke Sean dodged me at a West Crown. We were supposed to fight, so that's another person I haven't fought that would be on that list too.
well,
And I'm making a little call out telling him that I still remember that. And he said he was too hot and too tired, and so was I. But anyways, I'm gonna blame him anyways. So
that was when Helga got knighted, right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah. I actually, you know, I was watching that 5 things thing that Uther did, and you called in or whatever, and you said you had never fought Sean, and I'm like, how could that possibly be? Sean has been up in Ontario for so many times.
No way. He said, no, you're not important yet. So yeah.
All right then. What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't even know really what I can say. I mean, one that I've watched over and over and over again is Braveheart. I don't want to say that one though. One that I absolutely love though, only because of the history of it, is that one with the motorcycles and the jousting and that sort of. I can't remember. I can't remember the name of it. It's just because it's so horrible and wonderful. And what a lot of people don't know is I love just terrible B movies. So
Nice. All right. If you could add a rule to the rules of the list, what would it be?
you know it would be permanent best of 9 fights. You know that would be the case. But if there was a rule, okay, no butt spikes, because let's be honest, they're garbage.
What is your favorite tournament format? Best of 9? Best
Best,
of 100?
but I mean, double a limb is wonderful. It gives you that chance, but the finals of a best of 9, and so everybody out there, because people in Ontario know, but that's why I do a best of 9. And she mentioned in the last interview that it was a Christian special. That's what she's talking about, a best of 9 that Saverick had to go through. I'm happy that because I'm the one who does it, I never have to go through it though. So
I said it with love. It was with love. What is your favorite event?
Pensix home. Pensix home, because it had such an effect on me and I kept going back. But when it comes to really at the core of what I do and what I love, it's going to be Crown. Yeah.
Have you gone back to Pinzik as king?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I was at Pensik as king. I was at Pensik when I was Prince of Tiri as well, and everybody thought that I was king because they didn't understand that we had principalities which have a ruler, and then everybody went, oh, you're only prince? Oh, you're not allowed in this party. So I had to come back as king at some point because, man, that hurt. It was just brutal.
All right. If you could have any helmet, regardless of cost, what kind would it be?
Oh, I knew this one was coming. You know, my helmet. I won't have another helmet. This is it. And also,
I actually had a picture of that queued up because
I permanently have that crown on it. It would be great, but.
So who did the crown?
It was a guy that I know just over on Vancouver Island. I bought the brass and everything else because I knew that we had leather war crowns. We've had little things like that, or I've even seen painted onto their helmets, but I wanted something actually built, and I wanted a crown built. And if you look really closely, it's set off of the helmet by aluminum plates that are in there. It is riveted on. This thing is permanent until I have to take it off multiple times because, I'm not king anymore. And then
you're not permanent.
I win like a couple months later. I'm like, oh crap, I got to put this thing back on. It is not easy. And it is It adds about 2.5 pounds. I've measured it. This is already a heavy helmet because it's 11 gauge stainless, and I've got mastic in there to make it dulls the noise. It doesn't ding, it thumps. So that's just sound deadening stuff. But this thing's full face and it's got the surround and everything. That makes it super heavy. And then I add that thing. But
well, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't have another helmet. I love it.
All right. Okay, it's Saturday morning at Estrella, and several people want to talk to you about last night. What did you do?
Probably had a far too serious conversation over in a corner with one individual who really just wanted to go out and party and ruin their night. So.
Okay. All right. Who is your favorite fight ever?
Favorite fight? That's tough. I don't know. I don't really know. I know the people that I love fighting, but favorite individual fight, I'm thinking individual. It was honestly, there was a moment that changed for me right before it ended. It had to be my second win at Crown in the finals against Sven, who is one of my idols. Sven Gunnarsson is phenomenal inspiration, but also that moment to be able to be there against the man that I wanted to become and to have him in the finals. And yeah, that was my favorite thing in my whole life.
That's pretty special. Oh, all right. Well, that was the 10. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Next interview is actually Thursday, and I'm going to have Duke Conrad von Crixen from Artemisia. And so that'll be really interesting. He's an interesting guy and a very artistic guy, so we'll probably talk art too. Thank you, Your Majesty, very much, and we'll see you all later.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye.